Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started then. Um, I am Terry Walsh. I am an assistive technology instructor here at Society for the Blind, and I'm your host today. Um, Welcome to our life seminar. Life standing for living independent, free, and empowered. Um, Here in these seminars, we usually will interview and speak with um, inspiring people who are living independently, free and empowered, and living pretty impressive jobs and stuff. And so today, I thought it would be fun to hear the story of your instructors. So, the stories of how we've lost our sight. And notice that I say we've lost our sight because we have not, all of us going through this, losing our sight, have not lost vision. So, need to keep that in mind. So, I'm going to start us off um, because I don't want to follow a couple of the people in this room were my teachers. So I don't want to follow them. So I'm going to start us off. And then after me, we'll have Bob, who is also an assistive technology instructor. And then we will have Jill, who is the Braille instructor and also the manager for the Braille Transcription Center. And then we will have Sam, who is also assistive technology instructor. And then at the end, we will open it up for questions. So if everybody could just mute at this time, and then we will open it up at the end. Okay, so I have been visually impaired all of my life. I've always had to wear glasses and Coke bottle lenses and contact lenses and all that kind of stuff. And around in the 90s, I got that surgery, the radiokeratotomy, which is pretty much kind of pre-laser. And it did pretty good. It never corrected my left eye at all, but it gave me 20/20 vision in my right eye. And so for years, that it was just a miracle for me. And then, I lived a pretty productive life. I was a physical therapist. I raised four children, soccer mom, played in a tennis league. We were very active. And around, let's see, around 2008, I had a doctor tell me because my left eye was getting worse, and I had to wear glasses again, and my left eye was getting worse. And he said, well, he could correct that vision by doing a corneal transplant. And at the time, he was just, saying, oh, this is a win-win situation. And so I fell for it and I did it. And I was just about to return to work, and it was taking out like one of the final stitches, and it got infected. And they tried and tried to save the eye, but I ended up losing my left eye. And I still had, perfect vision in my right eye. And it was it was okay for about 4 months. I mean, even though it was devastating, about 4 months. And then I had an autoimmune attack. My body attacked my good eye. So they tried to save it. And, they tried and tried, and they were able to save some vision. So I was still legally blind in that eye, but I had, you know, some okay, I felt in hindsight, I felt like, that I could function. And of course, I was still devastated. My whole life would changed. I couldn't drive, and I was depressed, and had my pity party. Became a professional couch potato, and you know, in all of this, I started watching YouTube videos on, how to be blind. There's a lot out there. And I found one on using the cane. So I thought, well, okay, so I bought myself a cane and I was out and about trying out my cane, just like I learned in the video. And my honey was with me, and he says, "Oh, look, there's one of your stick sisters over there." And I'm like, "What?" Goofball. It was a woman using a cane. And so I was like, "Oh my gosh." So we went over and we talked to her, and she was really nice. And she told me, I found out about a support group, which was in Auburn. And she also told me about Society for the Blind. And so I felt empowered. I was like, oh my gosh, all right, I'm going to follow up with this. So I did. I called up. I got an appointment at the low vision clinic, and I got set up with DOR. And as everyone here knows how that goes, I finally got into classes. So now we're talking 2019 is when I started classes. And I came, and I'll never forget, oh my gosh, the feeling of walking into this place, um, not knowing anything about the blind world, and walking into Society for the Blind with everybody, using their canes, and then the noise of everybody in their cell phones with the screen readers, and voiceover. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It was just like, whoa, this is crazy. And I just knew, hey, I think I'm in the right place. And I started taking classes. So I started with O&M and living skills, and assistive technology, computer. And I also signed up for, because I was a physical therapist, I signed up for massage classes, because I thought, being a massage therapist, I could still utilize my physical therapy skills, just, being more hands-on, in the outpatient setting. So that was kind of my job goal and my plan. So Chris, I got started, and just felt, every day was something new and exciting and empowering. And it was very exciting. And then, of course, we all remember the horrible COVID shutdown. Dum, dum, dum. So everything closed. And so no massage classes and no more in-person Society for the Blind. So we went remote, and it actually worked out really well. It was very, very impressive how the classes were still uh, incredibly well done, and without ever have done that before. So it worked out really well. And since I was in person, I added Braille. So at the time, I mean, I was terrified to do Braille. It seemed overwhelming, and I thought, I'm just going to learn the alphabet for labeling. And of course, I loved it, became hooked, and Jill stuck with me, and yay! So I got through Braille, and I got through all my classes. And Paul convinced me that I should do the the technology certification program, since it was a remote class. I thought, well, okay, so I got a new plan. I'm going to work for Society for the Blind, and I'm going to work in the senior program. I'm going to work in core, living skills, assistive technology. This is going to be great. And as I'm going through all of this, I've got a new plan, new goals. I had another setback with my sight. I got an infection in my eye, and it was really bad. And all I saw was white for days. And finally, when they were able to clear it up, all I had left was just some shadow and light. And I was just felt completely devastated again. I just felt like I was just, knocked off my pedestal. I just felt so crushed and I just didn't even know what I was going to begin to do. And then it dawned on me, hey, lady, you have a bag of tools that you have been learning and collecting. And I was just like, wow, all these non-visual tools that I wasn't really using because I was still using that, ineffective vision that I had left. And I was just amazed that, wow, I have all the tools I need. So again, I'm empowered, I'm happy, I'm excited, and everything is coming together. And um, all of a sudden, my honey just found out he got a job in Texas. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Now I'm not going to be working for Society for the Blind, but I guess I still have all my tools. I still have my certification. And we put our house on the market. We're getting ready to go. And um, I get a call, and one of the instructors happened to leave unexpectedly, and they needed help. And they offered me the position. And I was, oh my gosh, I was just so excited. And I accepted. Yes, yes, yes. They told me you can start here remote. And when you move to Texas, you can keep, we'll keep you on. And so it was just wonderful. It was like, yay, everything is working out. And I was just so grateful. Um, so society has just been just a gift for me in my journey of losing sight, but also in employment and just meeting new friends. And um, I just feel, like I just might be a stronger, better person for what all the things that I've kind of gone through. Um, and so, all in all, I just, feel super grateful for Society for the Blind and for my teachers here and my training. I've been here about 2.5 years now. Um, so I think what I really just wanted to make sure that everybody knows is that, losing your sight is, it can be incredibly frustrating and devastating and depressing, but um, there's a way to do anything that you think that you can't do or that you couldn't do, you can't do now because you're losing your vision. There's a way to do it. There is. Somebody has done it before, or there's a group. I mean, things like snow skiing and hiking and horseback riding, and there's a way to do it. And so, all I'd like to say also is just never give up. Never give up. Sometimes you get so frustrated, and um, if you just put it down and walk away and come back a little while later, it's a whole different situation. Or every day is a new day. Kind of like teaching technology, it never does what you think it's supposed to do. So, I always say, let's just restart the computer and try it again. I'm sure it'll work this time. So, so you never know. So just don't give up and don't get down and don't think that you can't do what you want to do or what you used to do because there's a way to do it. Or there's a will, there's a way. So um that's wow, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Um I am pretty much a nut. Um so that being said, um Bob, go ahead. Take it away.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So, hello, everyone. My name is Bob Cole, and I am also an assistive technology instructor with Society for the Blind. And I'm going to try to watch the time here because I can sometimes get a little long-winded. So, um, yeah, I think that I'll figure it out. But basically, my journey kind of starts out in Ohio. I was born and raised in Ohio, and I was born with a very rare visual condition called microphthalmia. I didn't even know the name of it until 2011. That's how rare it is. Last I checked, I think that roughly about 1 in 10,000 or more people are born with this condition. And so it's very, very rare. It just means essentially that the globe of the eye doesn't form to the quote normal size. But what is normal anyways? I don't I don't even know if it's possible to ascertain what it is these days. So we just be who we are, try to be kind. Um, so without going into detail, because I could probably be here for a long time, I unfortunately grew up in a pretty abusive background. The male figures in my life were not very kind. And I lived in a small town in Ohio where there weren't any resources for people who were blind or low vision. While growing up, because of a lack of engagement with others in the blind community, I found it very difficult to accept my blindness. Um, I grew up and watched my two brothers and my sister get the driver's licenses and realized, wow, I'm never going to get to go out and drive. Um, Now you look forward to 2024 and there's all this talk of autonomous vehicles and things, and you never know what the possibilities are going to be. Technology is a huge thing, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But um, I eventually, grew up and moved out at the age of 18. It was a pretty toxic home. The male figures in my life don't don't intend to psychologically trigger anybody, but there was a bunch of name calling um, between my dad when he was alive and my mom's boyfriend thereafter. His nicknames for me were things like freak and blindy. And I'm just going to be very transparent here because I don't have anything to hide. And sometimes people don't talk about these things because they're afraid of the social stigma. So we're just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to be open here. Um, I was told as a kid that no one will want to hire me because I'm blind. I can't do gardening because I'm blind. I can't do this or that because I'm blind. So there was the I can't and the because I'm blind. And then you insert whatever activity. In high school, I participated in marching band, and that's when I first had my first real experience with somebody who saw past the eyesight. So my condition, my eyes are discolored. There's no vision in my left eye, and my right eye has an acuity of about 20 over 1,000. So everything's foggy. Um, from what I was told, my right eye is mostly covered in a grayish color with a little blue speck. So evidently my eyes were supposed to be blue. Um, and I was told from a retinal specialist and such that those are cataracts and they're only going to worsen. Um, but they will not operate on them because everything is micro. The cornea is micro. Everything is super small, and there's a good chance of losing what little I have. So they don't operate. I'm fine with that. Um, but the process of blindness growing up, it was always coming to these seemingly huge mountains in the road and coming to a place of acceptance and climbing over them. In high school, like I said, I was in marching band, but I played on the sidelines. I played the trombone. And there was a different band instructor that came in my junior year, and he said, "You're going to go march on the field. You're not going to be on the sidelines anymore." And I told him, I said, I don't think I can do that. And he said, "Yes, you can." And so we worked out a system with some of the other players, in the I guess the bass instruments like trombone and tuba and such. And I went out and I marched on the field with with my marching band and I did track and field. The sad thing was there was no support from home, and so it was tough. What I did on my own. I was in Taekwondo, did that on my own. Believe it or not, if any of you are fans of WWF wrestling, I went to professional wrestling school when I was 16. Did that on my own. It was a very amazing experience being in the ring. The chairs, when they use metal chairs to hit other wrestlers, those chairs are real, but they teach you how to absorb it so it doesn't hurt as much. Um, and I just continued growing. I didn't know what to do with my life because the the you can't philosophy was drilled in ever since I was young. Uh, Suffice it to say that at the age of 17, due to circumstances in the home, my younger siblings and I were taken into foster care, and it split up the home big time. Won't get into all the details of that, but I didn't want to go back to my high school because I didn't want to be a part of the rumor mill. So I went to a vocational school, and that was my first real experience with computers. I went into their business computer technologies program and graduated with a certificate. And back then it was Windows 2000 and then Windows XP. I used magnification because I still wasn't accepting of the blindness. I was hesitant to use a screen reader because I just kept thinking, well, that's going to draw too much attention to me. I don't want that attention. I didn't use a cane. I didn't use a cane until I was 18. I did have orientation and mobility training when I was younger, but I hated it. I felt like that cane was putting a target on me. I wanted to be looked at as quote normal. And again, a lot of us are striving for normal when there really isn't one.
Mm.
And so I was attending a college in Dayton, Ohio when I was living on my own, and I was walking out in a courtyard. Okay. And I didn't realize it, but just to my right, literally like an inch, there were some stairs. And I had this tendency since my usable eye is my right eye, I sometimes have the tendency when I walk to veer to the right. And I veered to the right and I went down those stairs. And I don't mean in the regular fashion.
Mm.
I tumbled down those stairs. And instead of anybody saying, "Hey, are you okay?" I heard laughter. And it hit me
Mm.
at that point. It's like, I need to use that cane, not because of others, but because of myself. Because if I am not able to ascertain what's in front of me, I'm going to get myself hurt. And that cane became, for me, that extension of independence that it wasn't before. And sometimes we have to fall when we're climbing in order to come to those points of acceptance to realize, okay, I need to do this a different way because this is not working. I continued learning technology in a lot of different ways. I struggled with finding employment. And that's a long discussion in and of itself. The fact of the matter is that if anyone has an opportunity to learn to use technology and to learn those independent living skills, take it. It will be scary. It will be hard. It will be frustrating. With technology, there will be days where if you had a sledgehammer, you would introduce it to your computer. But that just happens. It does. But as you learn to troubleshoot, you learn to go through these things, you develop the skills. One thing about the blind community and those who are pushing forward that I see is they find ways to adapt. They find ways to troubleshoot. They find ways to make things happen when things probably wouldn't be expected to happen. And so it's that continual resolve and that continual push to keep going forward. Um, I moved out here to California in um, 2007. I had married in 2004. And um, so I'm just checking the time here. I want to make sure not to go too long. But I I moved out here and I ended up having two kids who are my world. And then in 2015, circumstances whose details I won't go into, I entered the journey of single parenthood. Um, and I've been full time on my own with my kids since they were 3 and 5 up to this day. And that was another one of those things where you fall and then you get back up and you learn to do things a new way, taking them to school, taking them to do things so that they aren't boxed up in an apartment or inside of the walls of a home so that they can live lives. They didn't inherit the vision condition that I have, which I'm thankful for them. Um, and I did not want them to be boxed up. And so it was coming to that point of making that choice that you have to do hard things and you learn and you just keep going. Um, continued learning in assistive technologies. I live in Modesto. I went to a place called Vision Impaired Person Support, and I went through independent living training there, orientation mobility, and assistive technology. And I developed good friendships with my trainers there. Um, However, I still wasn't ready to adapt to using a screen reader. I was still stubborn about using magnification. I continued through college, and I always got frustrated because it took me so long to read stuff with magnification. And then eventually, years later, I went back for screen reader training, and I kicked myself because I could get stuff done so much faster. It has a bit of a learning curve in the beginning, but don't let it scare you because the more that you work with it, the more you're going to be able to accomplish. Continued going through training, and my friend here in Modesto kept saying, "You need to go into the assistive technology instruction field. You'd be really good at this." And I doubted it for 10 years because of what was instilled in the past. And so whenever I see parents out, sometimes I've seen them here in Modesto with children who are blind or vision impaired. I always tell them, they ask if I have any advice. And the first thing I tell them is don't ever use the words you can't
Mhm.
with your kids. Help them find a way and help them to adapt. Um, Long story short, I was hired on last year at Society for the Blind as an AT instructor. I love the job. I love seeing what technology can do to make our lives better. And it's only going to get better with AI and the inception of AI. I understand some people have an aversion to it, they're afraid of it, and that's okay. It's new, but it's doing things. We're at a point now with a particular app called ChatGPT where you can get that thing to generate PDFs and documents for you for a paid subscription, of course. Um, but that technology can open up doors that other things may not have been able to. And so I just spend my days taking care of my kids. I became engaged in June, and I'm just continuing to move on with my life and doing the best I can to take care of my family. And so life is not easy. And if you're going through sight loss, it's a journey. Grief is a journey. It's not something like it's not a bridge that you just get over and then that river's behind you. It is a journey. There are going to be hard days. There are going to be easy days, but take it a step at a time. Find people who understand, and express yourself to them. And I don't mean just anybody. I mean safe people who are going to let you talk without trying to offer unsolicited advice unless it's asked for, and who aren't going to judge. Um, the possibilities are endless out there. Even if it seems like statistics might be stacked against us, that doesn't mean anything because we have the capacity to push forward. So even if you come to plateaus in your training and whatever program you're in, get through the plateau and keep walking because you're taking your life back. And that's the important thing. So I think that I'm a little bit past 15 minutes. I'll just answer this. Some things that I like to do. I like to cook. I like to write. I don't feel like I'm good at it, but I like to write poetry and things like that. I like going bike riding, believe it or not. I've tried roller skating. Now that I'm 40, that's not something I really want to deal with. So a lot of things, but the possibilities are endless. You have to push and climb, and it's going to be hard, but don't give up on it. So I'm gonna leave it with that. Thank you for allowing me the time to share. And if ever anyone has any questions, feel free to email. Um, but thanks again.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Miss Jill.
Hello. I'm gonna try. So if you hear noise, excuse the noise. I'm having my house construction, so I'll try to move to another area. But my story is kind of a little bit different, I think. I was born in Manhattan Beach, California. And at about 6 months, my dad started noticing that something was wrong with one of my eyes. It was bigger, it was kind of a grayish color. So they took me to the doctor and they determined that I had what they call a clouded cornea, and it's due to my mom being exposed to German measles. She never had German measles, but she was exposed to somebody that did. So when I was 4, the eye just kept getting bigger and it kept getting more ugly looking. And so since it had no vision, my parents were like, well, we're going to go ahead and take it out, put it in artificial eye. So that happened. And then through that time, I just kind of, my parents just, I can't say, I don't know how to say in words how much good things they've done for me growing up. They pretty much raised me to be independent, to try anything I wanted to try. Sky's the limit. So I went to regular public schools, and I did not use a cane at that time because I could still see pretty good out of my left eye. It was kind of a grayish color because of the cornea, but I could still see pretty good. But my parents decided to force the school district to teach me Braille at 5. And of course, the school district was, she doesn't need to learn Braille. She can still see. We'll worry about that later. My mom was like, oh, no, no, no. She's going to go blind. We are going to teach her Braille now. So by the time I was 8, the transition from print to Braille was easy. I didn't suffer in education because I was able to keep up with everything. Thanks again to my parents who, fought the school district for that. So went to some blind camps when I was a kid. I just didn't feel like I fit in. I wasn't, quote unquote, back then when you think you know everything, that I wasn't a blind person. I didn't do some of the blindisms that genetic blind people do, the rocking, the different things. I just didn't feel like I fit in with the blind community. I went to camp several times, did different activities with camps. And as I got older, I got more mature, obviously, and started seeing that, hey, blind people are kind of cool. And I still was kind of hesitant. I was going through school with no other blind children there, nothing. It was just me. Everybody knew I was blind. They knew I had a vision problem, carried around a bunch of heavy books and Braille writers. So embarrassment wasn't a factor, but I wasn't ready to be blind. So going forward through high school and that same thing, it was after high school and I knew I was getting more blind. I could tell. I was walking slower, trying my hardest not to bump into things. And my family didn't know. Like, they didn't know that. They knew I was going to lose my sight, but they didn't know it was happening. And I tried to hide it from them. And I always tell the story because it just makes me think about how much we try and hide it. And then when you finally tell everybody your situation, you feel so much better. But my sister and I were sitting on my dad's boat in Catalina, and she was saying to me, gosh, doesn't the moon look really pretty on the water? And I was looking and I said, yeah, it's amazing. And she said, Jill, you're looking the wrong way. And then at that moment, her and I cried, and she's like, how long have you been not be able to see? And I'm like, I don't know. And I remember going into the bathroom and flicking on the light, turning it on and off just to see if I could see it. The reality was I couldn't. So I don't think I was scared because I just faked it for so long. But I decided at 18 to go to the Living Skill Center. So I went there, got my blindness skills, got my cane travel technique going down, and I was okay being blind. Like I was on that journey to learning all the tools I needed to continue going forward. Got a job working for Carl's Jr. for about a year. Went to school, studied early childhood education. And then what did I do? And then I worked for a special needs class for about a year. Did a couple other odds and ends jobs with children. I started my own daycare. I got married. We lived on base, so I started my own daycare with kids below 2, and did that for a long time, 4 years, I think. And then I had my son, and he is sighted, and got divorced, raised him since he was 2 on my own. And I did the BEP program, which is a program for blind, low vision individuals, for managing cafes, vending machines, that kind of thing, in government or state buildings, or federal government state buildings. I did the class, did not do anything with it when I was finished. It wasn't for me. Realized that I would rather spend time with my son than work 12, 13 hours a day. Then after that, I did a lot of things for my son's school. I did a lot of volunteer, did baseball mom, soccer mom, taekwondo, did all that with him. And at that time I could afford to stay home and be with him. He was about 8 then. And then finally, when he was about 15, I decided I need to go back to work. And I started volunteering at Society for the Blind. And then the opening came up for Braille instructors. So I went with that. And I am here today after 9 years and just recently got promoted to manager of the production program. And I think my message is a lot like Robert's. You know, I love kids, and one of the things I love doing being the manager of the Braille transcription program now is because we're doing textbooks for children. We're doing their math books. We're doing their graphics. And I just love the fact that these kids are getting that. I'm really passionate about that. But that, you know, parents don't tell your kids you cannot. I'm so thankful I had the parents that I had, because without them, I wouldn't be who I am. And even my sister, you know, my sister was sighted, and she would always make games that she would play with her friends adaptable some way. She would find a way to make me be able to do it with them, so I didn't feel like I didn't fit in and stuff. But you know, I see so many parents tell their kids, you know, say to the teachers, they don't need to learn Braille. You know, they'll be fine with print till they can't see anymore, and that's just so untrue. But yeah, just keep believing in the things that you can do, because everything is possible. And like Robert said, don't let people tell you can't, because to me, when somebody tells me you can't do it, I'm going to work harder to do it because I'm just stubborn. My mom was stubborn, and you know, we gotta be, you know, we're on this journey, and we gotta get out there and just do things and let people know that we're blind. We're not going to sit at home and do nothing, you know, and there is tools out there to help you achieve whatever you want to achieve. Terry says it a lot. You know, you may have lost your sight, but you haven't lost your vision in life. And yeah, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Mhm.
But I do like blind people now. I know it sounds kind of funny that I joke about that, but I just wasn't having it at that time. And again, everybody on their journey, we all learn and adapt in our own ways. And it took me a while to be like, okay, well, I'm blind. I'm with these guys. These are my people, you know? And yeah, just had to figure it out. But thank you for letting me share my story.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill.
Okay, so this is Sam Adams, like the beer. And as I'm listening to the stories, I've been making notes because there's a lot of overlap. And even though our stories are very different, the themes overlap. The word stubborn is big here.
Indeed, indeed.
Indeed, indeed. And stubborn is kind of, there's something negative about it. And I don't get what's so negative about
I don't
stubborn.
either.
So I think we should call it determined. Then that's
persistent.
Yeah, yeah. Can't, another one that comes up. And whether you have somebody that tells you you can't, or you tell yourself that you can't. That's a big theme here. The other one is that we are farmers. I know nobody said that, but I always say, and some of my students will agree with me, that we as blind people are like farmers. You end up in the middle of a field and your tool breaks. Well, you don't rush off to Home Depot and buy a new tool. You got to improvise and figure out and do something with what you got and the tools that you have. And why have only one way to do things when you can have 5? Because as a blind person, you're going to need one of those other 5 ways. Hang on. Scared, fear. That's another one that comes out. And the question is, was there fear or was there not fear? Some people, yes, some people no. But another part of the themes. Okay, those are my things. A summary of what has happened. Now, let me tell you a bit about me and where I come from and how I fit into all of this. So I have RP, so retinitis pigmentosa. So I was born with it, but which means I was just born with crappy eyes. So at the age of 4, I had glasses because I sat too close to the TV, and I was always being yelled at for tripping over the dog and the vacuum cleaner. And then as time went on, I had trouble walking into church because Catholic churches were dimly lit. I grew up in Saskatchewan, which is Canada, north of North Dakota. Big, big blue skies, lots of sunshine. You walk in from all that sunshine, spring, summer, winter, fall, into the dimly lit church, and my pupils didn't dilate and contract, and it would take 20 minutes before I could see anything. And I was the kid out in left field in softball where I'd always get yelled at for sleeping out of there. Go ahead, pay attention out there. Yeah, pay attention to what? So at the age of 12, I finally had a diagnosis, and the diagnosis was RP. I spent a whole day at a special eye clinic at the university. All these tests, tons of drops. And of course, the doctors didn't tell me anything. They took my mom into a little room and they told my mom, your daughter's going blind, and have a nice day. They never said blind isn't black. They didn't say anything. They just said she's going blind, and she'll probably be blind in the next 5 years. So for my parents, it was devastating. It was really hard to watch my dad cry as a 12-year-old. For me, it was a relief. Like, okay, I got a label. I got an explanation. Now I know why I'm tripping over the dog and walking into parking meters and whatever. So I was relieved, and I decided right then and there, and I don't know how I knew about guide dogs, but I had decided that's it. Well, when I'm blind, I'm going to get a guide dog. So there's something to look forward to. So I'll just bide my time and get there. So all through high school, I was just the geek who couldn't see very well. I wasn't blind. I was great. I was a geek. Like, that was just easy to deal with. I was in band too, and had plenty of those times where you ended up having to walk onto a stage in the dark, and I had to have other people help me get there. My dad would photocopy my sheet music, so it was on. You'd take 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper to work, and he'd come home with 11 by 17. I mean, you could read my sheet music from 40 feet away if you could see. But whatever. I too, like a certain politician, worked at McDonald's in high school. There were certain things I didn't do at McDonald's because I was a geek who couldn't see very well. So I was never the runner in the drive-through that would read the monitor and fill the boxes or bags full of the food. I did other things. I made mistakes. I pressed my fingertips into the grill and had no fingerprints for a while. But 2.5 years later, graduated from high school, graduated from McDonald's, and I went to Brazil as an exchange student for a year. No, parents weren't so keen on that. My mom would have preferred that I stayed closer to home and that she could protect me. But my family never, they had to rein me in on a regular basis. I had big ideas. At one point, I was joining up with people. You had to have $10,000 in your back pocket in 1985 to be part of Up With People, and there was no $10,000 bill coming my way. So whether it was money or it was the eyesight, there was always a dream in my back pocket, and my parents would always have to try and rein me in. They didn't rain on my dreams, but they did try to make me be a little more realistic. So off to Brazil, come back, go back to Saskatchewan. Nobody speaks Portuguese in Saskatchewan, so I start university. I study Spanish. I'm an English major. and I'm trying to figure out how to do this with failing eyes. And within 6 months of coming back, I have finally have that label. I'm legally blind. But it's not like I woke up one day and suddenly everything was worse. It wasn't. So even though I had a label, I felt like a fraud for a long time. So I didn't use a cane. There's a cane in my backpack. I left it on the bus on a regular basis, but I never unfolded it. That was for blind people, and I wasn't really blind. Um, my resources were a lot. It was my blind service resources were significantly limited compared to what's available here. My cane training amounted to about an hour in high school, and that was it. So here you go. Here's a cane, but we won't tell you what to do with it. You just go figure it out. Yeah, figure it out. All right. I'll leave it on the bus. I too fell down a flight of stairs in a bar in Montreal. And it was only 2 beer, I swear, but they didn't believe me. Yeah, tumble, tumble, tumble. So university, I did it still trying to use my eyes as much as I could. I used a visual tech. I don't even know if they sell those anymore, but it was a monitor with a telescope and a platform where you put the book on the platform and then project the book up onto the screen, and you could slide the book back and forth. It'd take about 3 hours, and you were pretty nauseous and seasick. You can make the letters as big as you wanted to, but I did that, and I had some reader researcher help through the Voc Rehab people. And I had some talking books and some large print books, but I never really mastered the skill of listening at that point. So magnifiers, and I wore myself out trying to do everything the sighted way rather than the blind way, because I wasn't really blind anyway, so what's the big deal? So I started university in 87. So here you go. Yeah, I'm 56. You can stop doing the math. Graduate high school 86, university 87, English major, minor in Spanish, and I got married in 1990 while I was still a student. Coming to the end of my bachelor's degree, and I had several part-time jobs, retail sales, and muffin seller in a coffee stand in a mall. But I knew that with these eyes and that English degree, my job opportunities were significantly limited, and I was going to have to do something more. So I made a list of things to do, and I started working my way through the list. So the first thing I did was apply to law school. Well, I never got any further because they accepted me. So, okay, well, I guess I go to law school. All right, well, okay. There's my tool. So I went to law school with the intention of never being a lawyer because I wasn't going to court. Hell no, that scared the pants off of me. I was just gonna get that tool and then I would be employable. Graduated from law school in 1994, and in Canada, in order to be a lawyer, even though I wasn't going to be one, you have to do a 1-year internship called articling. So I did that. I did that in southern British Columbia, so just north of Washington State, in a small town set at the confluence of 2 rivers, set in a valley, stinking hot in the summer and pretty moderate in the winter. Sounds like a mini Sacramento, which is exactly what it was. It was named Kamloops. 80,000 people, but the temperatures in the summer were very similar to Sacramento. 110 wasn't unusual. I hated my articles. I did it at a small boutique firm doing personal injury and banking stuff, but we acted for the banks and the insurance companies. So our motto basically was, too bad you slipped and fell. If you weren't so fat, you wouldn't have hurt yourself. Oh, your house burned down? Well, did you happen to have matches in your house? Oh, we're not paying for that either. Oh, we're taking your house. You didn't pay for it. I hated it. It was awful. So I got to the end of that, and the firm showed me the door, and I left, and we never looked back. I didn't fit in there, obviously. because I walked right in from there to legal aid to become a public defender because I wasn't going to be a lawyer. No, no, no. So I ended up going to court 18 out of 20 working days a week, working for all the little people, all the people down on Main Street. Those were my people. So I did criminal defense work for 7 years. Meantime, I started using a cane a lot more. I pretty much, during my articles, I picked up the cane and never stopped. So 94, 95. I used technology, used Zoom text in the early 90s, transitioned to JAWS in the late 90s, but again, very little resources. So my JAWS training amounted to the vendor coming to my place of work, installing it, and showing me a little bit all in 3 hours. That was it. The rest of it was just, okay, go. But I had the benefit of having a secretary, and I could get away with being a hacker. I got my first guide dog in 1995. So at that point, I guess I was starting to think, well, maybe I'm not such a fraud. Maybe I'm kind of blind. I'm using this cane. So first guide dog from Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael, and that was Falcon. My daughter's born in 99. My job changes in 2002. I moved up to the Yukon, east of Alaska, and ended up working for legal aid up there as a public defender, but also did some child protection work. Yeah, and a little bit of family maintenance enforcement. That was for a couple of years, and then I crossed over to the dark side and became a federal prosecutor for 4 years. In the meantime, got another guide dog because Falcon retired. That was Gilbert. And my marriage didn't survive the move, so I transitioned to being a fiercely independent, stubborn, determined single mom. My ex-husband moved out of the territory, so that was it. Just me doing it all. And in the meantime, when I'd gone to get guide dog number 2 at San Rafael, I met this guy. And this guy lived in Sacramento. And well, that was all cool for 2 weeks. And I go back home and do my thing and go back to doing what I do. But we continue to talk. And 5 years later, I moved to Sacramento on a fiance visa and went from being that independent single working mom to being a 1950s housewife. We blended our families. He had 2 daughters who were in their teens, and mine was 8 at the time. And I'm sure everybody here would agree with me that blended families are not the Brady Bunch. So it's a bit of a transition. And my husband was a business enterprise program vendor, the program that Jill was talking about. So I helped with the family business for many years. His kids grew up. Everybody lived to tell about it. Nobody got pregnant before their time. Nobody went to jail, and we're all still alive and mostly still talking. And I still haven't at this point connected with blind people all that much. I did connect with blind people back in my young adult years with a cross-country skiing group. But after that, not so much. Those blind people, these weren't my peeps. I was in a different world. But I did a yoga teacher training program in Sacramento in 2015, just before Thanksgiving. And by January, when nobody's knocked on my door looking for a blind yoga teacher, I decided, well, I guess I'm going to go find somebody who wants a blind yoga teacher. So I called the Society for the Blind out of the blue, and any interested yoga teacher? Well, they were. And they had had a yoga teacher who had just recently left. So I started volunteering at the agency that January of 2016, teaching yoga to blind people. And I discovered my peeps. It took a little while, but it was like, wow, I'm home. these are my people. I belong here. And I learned about the programming at the agency and opened my eyes to, oh, you mean I could get training and not be a hacker in computers? Oh, you mean I could learn Braille? Because I didn't learn Braille as a kid because back in the 80s, computers were going to save the world and you don't need to learn Braille. So I didn't. Nobody offered it. It wasn't an option. I did grade 1 Braille during maternity leave until that little girl started crawling, and that was it. There was no more Braille after that. So at the ripe old age of 49-ish, I start Braille with Jill. And I did tech training as well at the agency. And I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up during all this time. And still don't know.
Oh my.
Yeah, that's another program. Well, this job kind of landed in my lap just during COVID. And so I started the job with just the limited agency training. And at that point, then I also started the ATI trainer training. So I was working full-time and did the trainer training program too. So Terry was one of my first students. I will tell you, Terry is responsible for Control D for don't know why. And she was pretty much learning with me through the materials as I was learning them. So I would learn them, and then I'd take them to Terry and go, "This is so cool. Watch. Oh, I don't understand. Well, let's figure this out together." And then we'd figure it out. So I've been with the agency since July of 2020. May 31st of this last year, I moved. So I moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I'm coming to you from suburban Pittsburgh as we speak right now. Because my husband's daughters have both moved here. One has 2 children, 5 and 7, and nobody's moving back. So here we are. We're here. And I'm still teaching remotely. And so what do I like to do in my spare time? I like to do yoga, write, read, cross-country skiing, horseback riding, and cooking. And I have a list of affirmations for you. Favorite advice to give students: don't take yourself too seriously. Just hold on to that. And that's one that I use in yoga. Don't take it too seriously. It's just yoga. If you fall over, it's okay. And I was famous in yoga classes there for saying, there's no can't in yoga. It's okay for you to get in a position and say, oh shit, but you can't say, I can't. That's not allowed. Don't be ashamed of being blind. Blind is not a bad word. It's got 5 letters. It's not 4. Don't apologize. Don't say, I'm sorry, I'm blind, blah, 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 blah. No, stop. All of that goes away, and pick up the sentence with whatever you were going to say after that. Don't use the word just. I'm not just legally blind. I'm blind. Whether it's legally blind, whatever you want to say, but don't say just, don't minimize it. You are. You really are. I'm listening to Jill talk about how she didn't use a cane because she could see, because her vision was pretty good in that one eye. And Bob, the same thing. I'm going, no sane-sighted person would walk in your shoes for an hour and say that they could see pretty good. There's just no way. Sure. Stop trying to use your unreliable eyes when there are other ways of doing things. Let go. Take the next step. There will be a bridge. And there's the fear. I know it's scary, but it'll be okay. On the same note, blind is not black. Even those people who have no vision, it's not black. I got nothing left. It's not black. In fact, at 10 o'clock at night, when I take the dog out to do his business, I could swear it's broad daylight out there. It's not black. I'm on dog number 4, by the way. His name is Nesbit. He's the youngest 3-year-old I've ever had. And I have dog number 2, Lotto, who's 14 as of October 15th. He's in here. Crazy old man. And if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. That one was ringing true for Terry's story. Slow down and listen. Oh, Nellie, I've been known to say that on occasion. Slow down. We, especially if you're using a screen reader, we frequently, when we start using a screen reader, it's way too much, and you just stop listening. And then you have to start picking up and putting the pieces back in. What are the important things I needed to hear here out of all 200 words Jaws just said? I bet there were 4 important words there. What were they? So slow down and listen and pick those out. Far be it from me to tell you how to be blind after I just told you my advice, but blind looks different for everybody. So just because I do things one way and Terry does it another, and Bob and Jill, there's a million ways to do things. Finally, blind or not blind, we all live in community. So although we are fiercely independent and stubborn and we want to do it by ourselves, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be part of a community, because that's what being human is being part of a community. And so when you ask for help, I think you're telling other people it's okay. They can ask you for help too. So you can stand there and be a rock for somebody else and let others depend on you too. That's it. That's my list.
That's awesome, Sam. Thank you.
Well said, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember some of those.
I didn't know we were supposed to go like over our job stuff. I'm not a public speaker, so sorry. I'm just like,
It's okay. Well, now, does anybody have questions? We lost Bob. He had a student, unfortunately, that he had to go. So, but his email address, I can give it out at the end if anybody has questions for Bob. He had an inspiring story. So, does anybody have questions? Let's just unmute and be respectful, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
My question is about guide dogs. So when you make the decision that you want a guide dog and you put your name on the list, do you get to ask male or female, breed, and so on? And do you get what you want, or do you just, that's what your preferences are, but you still get whatever they assign you?
First, you don't put your name on a list. You actually do an application process.
Okay.
And not everybody gets a guide dog. There's an evaluation process.
Okay.
And then once you do get to give a preference, whether you get your preference or not, you're exactly right. You might not. My first 2 were black. I preferred black because I wore black suits all the time, and I just figured I'd never be able to keep up with the yellow hair. I have always had males, but I've been open to it didn't matter. This last one, I wanted a cross because Gilbert was the best. And I'll still tell Lotto that Gilbert was the best. And he still was the best. And he was a 50-50 cross, lap golden cross, black with long flowing black. And he was the best of both worlds, because Labradors are stubborn and Goldens are needy. And I wanted the balance of the two. So when I went to get Nesbit, they had a black cross for me. She was female. And after 5 days, she was pulled because she basically screwed up too many times. She had decided she didn't want to be a guide dog anymore. She didn't, no, this was too much work. And so they pulled her.
Yeah.
So the only
Yeah.
dog left for me in that string was a yellow Labrador. So either I went home with no dog and came back again later, or I tried this one and
They
I'm not
match
going
you.
home. I know.
And then
I've done
bought new
14.
clothes.
They
No, because no, number 3 was yellow too, so I'm used to it now.
And I waited for a golden. I got a golden. I asked for a golden. I had a golden retriever for my first dog, a black lab for my second. And I decided I didn't want a lab because they're too much chow hounds. They love to eat everything.
Yep.
So I
Oh,
asked for
yeah.
a golden, and it took me a little bit longer to get one.
Oh, but she's so awesome.
But so I
Mhm.
was on a waiting list to get one because they don't breed a lot of goldens like they used to. So,
Okay.
And
but
I
she's
just
not needy.
I just
Take that back.
requested female. So I got lucky with Jules. I don't know anything else. She's my first and my first love. So we'll see from here. I love her.
Oh,
Hi, you
that's
guys.
awesome.
This is Tina. I want to ask. I was sitting here. I do have a question. I just wanted to tell you all that it's really it almost brings tears to my eyes to hear your stories. I've been this way for like 6 years. All the positive and being ambitious and motivating and just moving forward, knowing you have a situation or condition or whatever a person wants to call it. But my big question for the working world, because I've always been a person that works, but I probably won't work anymore. I'm 66 and I might get a little job doing just anything. But my question is, and this is to all of you and whoever wants to answer can, how was it when you had to do an interview? When you sat there with the in-person interview, how did you handle that? I'm thinking if I had to sit here and interview with someone and they knew, of course they know that that I'm blind. I probably have a difficult time dealing with that.
It's easier having the dog or a cane and being really blind instead of just a little bit blind. I say that tongue in cheek, but it was easier because there's no hiding it. It's pretty damn obvious. But back when I interviewed for that articling position in 1994, I interviewed in 93 before my 3rd year of law school. No cane. I walked down the street just like anybody. If I didn't walk into a sandwich board, I was lucky. That's all. So I could fake it. And when I went to the firms and did my interviews, I did disclose, and it may have hurt me. But in the end, it's probably not the kind of place I would have fit in. Like big firms in the big cities, it's just I wouldn't have survived there anyway.
I think sometimes you have to prove yourself. I know for me, when I went to school for early child education, I did a lot of time in daycares and I really had to prove myself. And then you volunteer so many hours, and when it came time to finding a job, I literally walked in there with a cane and said, you know what, give me 3 days to show you what I can do. Because they were asking, how do you find a child? What if a child falls and hurts itself? That actually happened on my watch. A child had nothing to do with me. I didn't make it happen. But I got up, ran over the kid, took care of the kid, and they were like, wow, okay. So sometimes it's proving yourself and,
And a lot of my jobs, I got them based on knowing the agency or the business, knowing people, and I had already proven myself.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't have to interview.
But to be like a prosecutor,
even
big.
the federal prosecutor's office, they came to me. I was working for legal aid at the time, and the guy that was the head honcho called me up to go for coffee and said, "Did you want to come work for us?" Yeah, I do actually. Now, when I went to working up north for the legal aid office up there, I had already had 7 years of doing legal aid work down south, so that stood for itself. So I did the
Yeah.
interview over the phone, but I told them straight up that I was blind and I had a guide dog, but I'd been doing the job for 7 years, so I could do it. And that was
Oh,
it.
so
They
yeah.
never asked anything else after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a
I
comment I
manage
wanted to
most.
say.
Oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead,
go
Miranda.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I kind of laughed at everybody saying don't say no or don't say, to the kids that you can't do anything. I don't have kids. I have a dog instead. But my mother actually, I was first diagnosed when I was 4 years old, and I'm 64 years old right now. And she told me, I mean, she knew when I started to, not be able to see at night and stuff that, that's why they took me to the doctor to find out and got diagnosed when I was 4. And ironically, her whole life never told me I couldn't do anything. I think she was a little worried when she saw me outside with roller skates on, the old metal roller skates,
Oh yeah.
and riding my bike at the same time. I think at that point she might have regretted saying, "Don't let anyone say you can't do anything."
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I definitely lived that life, and still to this day. And then for jobs, I actually, one of the things that my vision, I still have some vision or functional vision, but I'm still not doing, I don't go out night, into the street and try to figure life out without a cane or a flashlight. And I actually volunteer for the community emergency response team, which works with the fire department, helping with different things that the fire department shouldn't be doing. They should be doing their job, and other stuff they let us do. And I could tell you, 3 days ago, I get paged on my phone with the app that we use, and it said there's somebody. It's called Pulse Point. They said there's somebody that needs first or that needs CPR near you. Are you available? And I could tell you, I got 3 blocks, got to there 3 blocks away quicker than the fire department got there because they know by GPS where you live and where the person is. And I actually was able to get there 10 seconds before the fire department got there. And I told one of the firemen, because I saw them coming, I could hear they were coming, but I saw the truck, and they started coming in. And I said I got paged. And then they said, and he goes, "How did you get paged?" And he didn't even know how that system worked for us. And so he goes, "Come back here." And I told him how it happened. And I said, "Well, I'm going to go to the gym." And he goes, "Well, at least you got warmed up," because I actually was able to do a slow jog, not a run down there. But I actually got down there, and it was just pretty cool. Everyone's like, "You could, I was thinking to my mom, don't say you can't do anything." And I'm thinking, darn, I'm not going to be able to read the things on the AID that has they have pictures of where you put the pattern. And it's like, but I remember how to do it from my class that I took for CPR.
Well, you could
And
save a
so
life,
I
Linda.
just,
That's
I just
awesome.
did it. And I went,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to go to the gym now.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Don't be shy.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment on the I can't. When I was a kid, my family, well, they still say this, but I can't means I won't.
Yeah.
Well, I have a thing when you tell yourself you can't, and I hear this a lot, I'll never be able to do that. There's no way. How can I? There's just no way. Da, da, da. You're pretty much talking yourself out of anything right at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Absolutely.
Yes.
oh gosh, here we go. But yeah, so
This is Donna.
Hi,
I have
Donna.
a question for Sam.
Hmm.
Really wonderful to hear all your stories. And, we all came from somewhere and reached this awesome point where we have a huge, nice community to share our experiences with. So
Yes.
that's great. Sam, I just wondered if you're still teaching the regular yoga class.
No. So when I first started working at the agency,
Yeah.
I was teaching yoga on Thursdays at noon, and we
Mm-hmm.
were doing it by Zoom. And I think
I
people
used
got
to attend
zoomed
that
out.
class.
You
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to join it?
Yeah. Yeah, and during COVID, Yes, for a time. Yes.
Oh, well, I think people got zoomed
Mhm.
out because it got to the point where I would end up with one person maybe or no people,
Yeah.
and they just got zoomed out of it.
Right.
It
Okay.
didn't.
All right.
I miss it. I do miss it. Yeah.
Might try it again. I don't know. I
By
think
Zoom?
a
Would
lot of
you
people.
do it by Zoom though? Because
Well, it
now
doesn't
I'm in
matter.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. I don't. If I was doing it via Zoom, even though I couldn't see what you were doing, I could follow along. So
Yeah.
that didn't bother me too much once I figured out there was a one-tap mobile for Zoom, which
Okay.
I didn't realize this. I didn't realize this was actually a Zoom call, so that's why I just called in. But anyway, my good friend Tina shared the information with me, and I had to go through much technology angst to actually get it on a contact card so it would call you guys automatically.
Ah. It's
Well, I'm
all a
glad you
learning
made
But I
it.
did it.
experience.
Yay.
I did it. Yeah, so I was
See?
kind of proud of
Never
myself.
give up.
But anyway, no, there's always, and you can't really break your phone. I mean, if you hear edit or delete, you might want to stop and back out of that. But other than that, if you just play around with it enough, you can figure it out. Yeah.
Just
And,
don't use a sledgehammer.
Yep.
and you have that great undo button.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, great discussion. It was nice to get to know all of you a little bit more. And a lot of us have been single parents. I was a single parent too for about 8 years with limited sight. I still was riding a bicycle around Lancaster, Southern California area where
You lived in Lancaster?
I lived in Lancaster.
My husband
Yep.
lived there for his childhood. That's where he grew up, Antelope High.
I almost grew up there, and I thank God I didn't, because at the time when I'm 74 now, so at the time I would have grown up there was nothing but blow sand and tumbleweeds.
He's
And,
74 too. So there you go. Oh my gosh.
Hey, we could have been neighbors.
Yeah.
We could have been neighbors. But
Wow.
instead I grew up in Granada Hills, so very nice community at the time, all GI housing, after the war and stuff, they built heavily in this, the north end of the San Fernando Valley. So anyway, yeah, it's I was glad. There would have been no Beatle concerts, no beach, no Hollywood Palladium, Teen Bears. So I'm really glad I didn't grow up in Lancaster.
Yeah. Everybody leaves.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
it's a big challenge to raise your kids by yourself with limited sight. I was pretty strict mom. I knew that if I lost them, they'd really be lost. So when they were little tykes, I really made them hang on to the stroller where the actual baby was. So they were all three and were like within 18 months of each other. So I got it all over with pretty quickly in my 20s and didn't lose any of them. So I was happy about that.
Hallelujah.
I know the challenges though. And I always had to create my own job. Always. Yeah. So it's hard to get a job when the society views you as less capable. So yeah, we can do anything though.
I was always stuck watching kids.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I
Still
did
to
a
this
little
day.
of that. I did a little of that too, but then it harkened back. After I got married, I tried a daycare at my house for a couple of years. And then it just was so dawned on me one day that I was keeping myself sort of stuck at the point where I was newly divorced and I was the only one responsible for everything. And it just kind of, made me focus on the fact that I wanted to do other things, and I wanted to, be out of my house because my
Yes.
kids were all in school by then. Yeah. So anyway.
When,
I
when
got
I
tired
was
of
a when I was a single parent, my son was just getting to that age where he wanted to go to parties, and I couldn't drive to pick him up. So we came up with this plan in the family that he had to be able to call a man in the family to pick him up if need be, because fights happen at parties, and that was my loophole to him going to parties.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well,
Well, yes, thank you for coming, everybody. And if nobody has any more questions, I think some people have to go back to work, right?
oh yeah. Yeah.
It was a good
Well,
class.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for
guys.
coming, everybody.
Yes.
you're
Okay,
welcome.
thank
Have
you
a,
very
Thank
much.
you.
Terry.
have a beautiful
Okay.
day.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.